Well, good evening and welcome to Season 2, Week 2 of the Zwift Racing League, WTRL. I'm Kate Bates. I'm joined by the one and only Anna Russell. And Anna, we've got a team's time trial up tonight. They're heading out on the RGV course. Does that mean you've got your whiteboard out and ready?
I have actually done a little bit of whiteboarding today. I watched the Prem divisions earlier, and this is a very interesting course, flat, but with a very technical back half. So that's where I've seen a lot of teams get unstuck and a few surprises. So I think we've got a good race ahead for us.
I think so. I mean, in the Prem League, we saw some pretty fast times. The women averaged 46k an hour for Hino. They took the win there. So I think that we'll be looking at some pretty fast courses ahead. Now, before we get down to it, let's take a look at the GC boards and where they stand from last week's racing. In the women's div, we're going to start with the Ds. We've got the AHDRL Degenerates. They took the win last week, so they're on 20 points. The AHDRL, of course, Australian Hump Day Riders Ladies, Diamonds in second. CMA, Cycling Mums Australia, sitting in third. BRT Inferno Kittens in fourth. BRT Pandora's Kittens in fifth. And Cycling Mums Australia Velo Girls sitting in sixth.
We look at the C category, we've got the AHDRL We Ate the Cakes leading ahead of the AHDRL Comets, the AHDRL Cruzettes, the AHDRL Spin Mafia. Then we have the CMA Queen Bees, then the Herd of Bilbies. You have to tell me what that is after, okay? Rave C in seventh, CMA Girl Gang in eighth, and the Cryogen Belleville in ninth.
Well, we can go into more detail, but a bilby is a small animal indigenous to Australia, I believe. The Div B standings. Now, we've only got a couple of teams in A and B, and we'll explain that further when we get down to the racing. But let's just take a look at this. The AHDRL Caffeines are taking the lead there ahead of the TBR Smile and sitting in second. CMA Squad Goals. Great to see so many Cycling Mums Australia entering teams, and the BRT Devil Kittens sitting in fourth. Neither of those teams earned any points last week, but they should be on the start line tonight.
And finally, rounding out with Division A, we've got Z Sunderstruck, the BRT Hellfire Kittens, and then Aero in third.
All right, let's jump straight down into the racing and see what is happening out on course. Anna, it's 24k worth this evening, so we did see some really lightning fast times happening in the Prem division. So I think that break that down to community, and we often saw last season that the top riders, the top teams within the A divisions of Community League were often pretty competitive with the Prem League times.
Yeah, giving, of course, the caveat that in the Community League they can race with 6 riders, whereas in Prems they can only race with 5. So if they have a 6-rider team, they're always going to have a little bit of an advantage because they've got that spare rider to put out some more watts. But it looks like Aero here only has the 5 riders out. They're all on the Tron bikes, looking good, looking pretty strong, not quite holding that straight line formation here, which is a bit unfortunate because they are on a flat section of road. This first half of the course, you can see they're only 2.5 kilometers in, is just almost dead flat with very few twists and turns, as opposed to the last half of the course. They take a right hand turn into near the balloon sprint, and then they just wind around. It goes up and down the whole way, and that's where it's very tricky to keep a tight formation. So this team really needs to get in that single line formation. That is definitely the way to go to be good at these team time trials. I can see also a rider's got a Aero helmet on. Found out that actually gives a 1 to 2% Aero advantage.
That's solid. 1 to 2% is definitely worth it, but you can't access the Aero helmet unless you've earned it in game. So it's not something that every rider will have the ability to use. Jenny Penttinen, she is a very strong rider on the Aussie domestic team, so it's great to see her in the virtual world and giving it a go. And honestly, I think that season 1, Anna, got a lot of the Aussies really keen to try a little bit of Zwift racing. I think it's been a bit of a slower uptake in some ways because it's still summer here in Australia, but it's really great to see, especially the women, really giving it a go. And it really shows in the depth of field, especially in the C's and D's.
Well, I think what's really good is because in Australia and New Zealand it's 7:30 or 9:30 at night. So even though it is summer, it's going to be dark, and you're probably not going to want out and go outside and do a full paced effort when it's dark outside. So this is a great time for the Southern Hemisphere crew because you can get your hard interval set in a fun team race environment.
So let's just talk about bikes for a second. Generally, people think of the Tron bike as the fastest bike in game. You have to ride 50,000 vertical meters, which is no small feat, I must say, in order to get it. Do you think that the Tron bike is the bike of choice for this one?
No, so the best bike setup you can have for this course is the Specialized Venge S-Works with the disc wheel, preferably the Superfly wheel, but you can only get that at level 43, as I know well, because I'm not quite there yet, and it's really frustrating.
Are you at
That
level
is faster
42
than
and like really annoyed?
Yes, I am, and it is
Yeah.
very frustrating. It's taken forever. But if you don't have a disc wheel, then Tron is best. So yeah, it's kind of Tron or disc basically whenever you're doing these team time trials. But it will be interesting to see if we get to some of those team time trials. I'm looking ahead. I think there's a New York course, which could be a bit punchy, and we'll take a bit of research to figure out what is the best bike for that kind of a course in a team time trial situation.
Well, we've changed the format a little bit this season. So we've listened to the community and what they wanted. The reason we only have a smaller number of teams in this A and B is because the women have indicated that it's very important for them to, even if it only gives them 3 or 4 teams within their division, it's very important for them to keep that division. I think that is a really big step to show the inclusiveness of women's cycling, because I know that there's a lot of C grade teams, for example, who wouldn't turn up to the start line if all of the grades were combined.
True. Yeah, no, that's it's a good point. It's also just want to say we're following Zed Sun here, and they've actually sent me a message during the week. Donette Shaw did, who I think, yep, there she is. She's out there racing from South Africa. She just wanted to say that the Z Sun riders, we'd talked last week about perhaps her and Hans Josten being from different Z Sun factions. She said, no, they're actually riding for the same team. One of them just accidentally had left their WTRL Thursday tag in her name, which is hence why we were wondering why one was Supernova and the other was Z Sunderstruck. But rest assured, there was no internal strife there. They were all racing for the same team.
Well, that is good to know, and we do rely on people jumping on social media to give us all the inside story. It took us a little while to figure out even the acronyms of some of the teams in season 1. So I think we're past that hump, but now it's about figuring out all the other nuances. The Z Sun riders, it's no surprise to me that they are looking fairly smooth. There are different ways to ride a team's time trial in the Zwift world, which I might add is quite different to in real life. You also race on Zwift, Anna. You race with Saris, the Pro's Closet. What to you is the most effective strategy for a team time trial?
So I'm going to say right now, I think the most important strategy is to have a DS. And I'm not saying that because I am the DS for Saris. I'm saying that because I've seen the teams. I know the likes of Canyon and the men's Prem. You have Heino on the women's Prem. They've all got DSs, and you can tell because when you're getting really tired, so maybe not right now, but maybe when these guys are kind of 15K in, it's really hard to make good decisions. And that's where you see so many teams just fall apart. And I think you need someone whose heart rate, isn't above 180 saying to you, okay, get back in your order. Okay, you there, you need to move back a bit. You're pushing too hard. Decisions need to be made for you. And I think that is almost what it's taking now to be a successful team time trial team out there. So one part of it is just, having that straight line formation, but the other is I think now it's getting pretty serious and it's having that director sportive in your ear.
It is serious. It's a bit of a bummer we can't see Donette Shaw's heart rate at the moment. I'm fairly sure it would be through the roof because that's kind of the key of doing a time trial, an individual time trial or a team time trial, is getting to your limit but not pushing too far over it. And we were discussing, they had the Tour of Oz on the weekend, so a lot of the Aussies are now doubling up. They've also been racing. First, they did the Tour of Boudica, then they did the Tour of Oz. They did Community League in between. So there's actually been, they've got a lot of racing in their legs. But it's interesting, I think, just to see, what level of fatigue the riders are carrying, whether they're choosing to do equal turns all 10, 20 seconds at a time, or whether they are actually tailoring it to the individual rider's strengths.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to give away too many secrets of how I determine the
Go on,
team
do it.
order. But you definitely need to think about people's 20 minutes and 5-minute power thresholds and have a look at, what order that is. If you've got a really high power rider in your team, like a Danette Shaw, and the next rider behind her is a lower power rider, well, that's just going to spell trouble because she's going to ride pretty hard off the front, and that next rider is just going to absolutely blow up trying to take her turn from Danette. So you've got to look at how you're ordering your team based on power profiles. And then, like you said, you've got to look at how long their turns are. So, if you can have a rider who can hold 300 watts, for 5 minutes, well, maybe they should be taking 45-second turns on the front. And someone who holds 200 watts is taking, even 10 to 15-second turns. But then the real magic sauce comes in when that needs to be fluid. So not everyone is capable of riding to their perfect power profile every race. You've actually got to look at how people are feeling on the day. A good DS will start looking at heart rates, what the thresholds are, and then tell riders if they should be taking longer or shorter turns.
And I think that's a really good point you make, is that no matter what the plan is, that the riders are doing really well when they get to a point that they can change the plan on the go. And we're seeing a really good example of that here in the Bees with Cross in the Caffeines. A bit of an acceleration opened a small gap there, but she was aware of that and she did drop back. And they all caught up without too many dramas. Now, if she hadn't have been paying a lot of attention, what we would have seen there, Anna, is the rest of the riders, the other 5 riders behind, string out and fracture trying to come across to her. So it's recognizing that nobody is going to execute perfectly to plan for the most part, but that they do need to have that tactical agility along the way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, what separates an amazing team time trial group to one that's okay or, good. So I think if riders want to be amazing, they do need to start looking at all these small details. Have we just switched to her? I like how they're looking. The TBR smiles on. Oh, they're always a team I really like. These guys actually are very good at team time trialing from what I remember in Series 1. Good use of aero helmets. Looks like a new kit that they've got for this season. I don't recall this being how they looked last season. Yeah, definitely a new kit. And they've got the aero helmets. They've all got those S-Works Venge with the disc wheels. So these guys are, just going to say, probably in Category B, the ones to watch out for. I think these guys could be very hard to beat.
Well, we've got one of the riders here I'm familiar with is Mon, who is M on Hitter, Monique. And she rides in our community groups for chicks who ride bikes. And she kind of corrals the front group that goes a little bit faster than the coffee group that I host a little bit back. And what always strikes me about her is her ability to corral a group so easily. She really gets the riders to work very well together and to stay as a very good blob. And I think that within this team, someone like Mon with those kind of skills would bring a lot of calm and comfort in case anything goes wrong, because let's be honest, stuff does go wrong. And it's those moments that you kind of need a calm soul to steady the ship a little bit and get everybody back on track. But they're looking really good. I mean, I think that it looks to me like they're quite in control and they're quite comfortable.
Yeah, they do. Unfortunately, you can't see that heart rate data for Waterhouse to know how comfortable they are. I mean, avatars always look fairly comfortable, but what's going on behind the scenes?
That's the beauty of it, isn't it?
But I do have to say that they're definitely the most well kitted out team. There's at least 3 Superfly wheels there. Those are those bright disc wheels at the back with the sort of pinks and greens going on. Those are the fastest setup you can get, and they are rocking those in this team. And that's probably why they're sort of flying along. I'm unsure of what order they've got going here. So they do seem to be getting a little bit messy or confused along the front. They're sort of riding what's that called, Kate, in cycling terms, where you're sort of riding like 2 abreast, 3 deep, and then taking rolling turns. Is there a name for that?
Yeah, dog's breakfast would probably be
Okay.
the one that came to mind. Yeah. So no technical terms. I mean, I think it's what they're looking for is more of an echelon where they're constantly rolling over, which is kind of the flavour that you'd be looking for. So nobody's really putting their head in the wind too much, because I think people watch something on the track, for example, like a team's pursuit, and they see people do very prescriptive times on the front, then swing off and get back on the back. But in a team's time trial, to go as fast as possible within the team, that's often not the best strategy. In fact, you just have to make sure that that pace high. And I think that's when we start to notice that they're in trouble when that happens. We're watching Julie Clark now from the Aussie Hump Day Riders ladies crew, the Comets here. Now, they do have a lot of representation across all these divisions. I think it was the top 4 were different AHDRL teams. But Anna, I think it's fair to say that even though they may have that same acronym at the beginning of their team name, that they're all well and truly competing as individual teams.
So I just want to call something out here, because I think these guys are having a bit of a go at me. These guys are on Facebook, this team, calling out my critique of their mismatching socks and gloves. And I'm looking at every rider, and every single rider is wearing some horrific glove choices that definitely do not match those socks. So kudos to the team for giving it back to me and showing that you can rock some gloves in game. But still don't love it, guys. I do not like these mismatching gloves and socks, but I appreciate the effort.
Oh, look, you can wear whatever you like, but I just cannot guarantee that we won't comment on it. I think that's probably the point. So let's take a look at the standings here. We've got the team league here for Div C, which is what we're watching. AHDRL, we can see they take the first 4 spots with We Ate the Cakes, the Comets, the Cruzettes, then the Spin Mafia. Cycling Mums Australia, hashtag Queen Bee. CMA have had a lot of teams across the board. They're a bit further down. Herd of Bilbies in 6th. They're kind of a small little, it's almost like a rat, but a much cuter rat, Anna. And in fact, It's quite a tradition in Australia to have chocolate bilbies for Christmas. That's a thing. Like, imagine like a chocolate bunny, but it's a bilby. That's a thing. In 7th, we've got Rave, CMA, another team there. This is in season 1. We didn't have the same number of Cycling Mums Australia participating, so I think that's really cool to have them out there. And a name that I have seen on the start list for CMA is Letty Melbs. And Letty was actually our soigneur at the Australian cycling team. So she came to many world championships and massaged our legs and looked after us very well. So it's great to see her out there racing and giving it a go.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. That's such a good little story.
Yeah, hi, Letty. We love you. My legs have never been the same since I stopped getting daily massages. It's a negative perk of retirement, I've got to say.
Oh, no. Looking at the Cruzettes here, I just saw someone putting in a little dig on the front. I think everyone that I've seen so far, maybe not Zed's son, but are sort of going with this bunch sort of pack strategy, which I know isn't the fastest. So if these teams want to work on that this season, it's definitely the strategy of going a straight line and taking some turns at the front. But this is a C category group that could be a bit newer. I'm definitely seeing some sort of more newish Zwift bikes on there that come around the level 7s to 10s. So yeah, definitely one that these guys can work on, which is awesome because they'll start to see benefits really quickly and be able to drop their times pretty dramatically.
Well, so when you're in the draft, you've got about 25% power savings. Uh, it is a little bit more sticky, that draft in Zwift, than it is in real life. And I think the rationale behind that is you don't have steering so much and you aren't as able to choose the wheel position. It's far more about being close rather than being able to sit directly behind a rider, for example. But as long as they do stay within that draft effect, then that's where the team, you can get some recovery from when you're on the front, and then when you go to the back and keep that pace up. These are an interesting set
Yes.
of nicks. What do you think, fashion police?
Oh, I feel like I'm being
I
too.
think
I
that
feel
says
like
it all.
I feel like the feedback. I feel like everyone's just bringing their worst game tonight. Like it's not a lot of stuff matching. It's just a little all over the show. Gloves, socks, just everything's everywhere. It is slightly doing my head in a little bit. But I'll give these guys the benefit of the doubt that maybe they're newish to Zwift and they don't realize how important the fashion is. But it's well,
Yeah,
I
two
just did
minutes
want
on
to
this
touch on.
broadcast and I'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's quite interesting though. We just saw that Pat, the one of those uh, Cycling Moms Australia, coming through, and they did that perfectly. It is a really tricky thing trying to ride through a pack because I think, like you were mentioning before, Katie, you have a sticky draft. And if you're coming through that pack and you get stuck on the slower group, you'll lose a rider really quickly. We've done that a few times. You know, someone just gets lost in the melee behind. By the time you get out, they're already 5 seconds back, and you really just can't wait for them. So these guys did that really well. They just pushed up their power a little bit and managed to get through. So kudos to these guys. That was a good technical display.
It was a very good technical display. Let's talk a little bit about etiquette when you're doing an overtake in a team's time trial. What is the front team supposed to do?
So, what I say to my team is if you're approaching a pack, you guys need to raise your power because it's your responsibility to get through the pack. You can't sort of get on to that other group and then slow down and suddenly you're all riding together. But once you're through, that other group does need to back off just slightly to make sure that no one's on the draft. There's nothing more annoying than seeing that there's two stragglers on the back of your group. And that's when you'll start to see some of those more feisty messages coming through. Not in the women's race so much, it all seems pretty friendly, but definitely in the men's race, that's where you'll be seeing some choice words on asking people to get off their wheel.
Yeah, it is very much etiquette based, and choice words, we often see that pop up on chat, which gives us a little bit of a giggle when they're having a go at each other because it's a very public forum. When you're commentating in real life, I feel like you spend a whole lot of time saying, what do you think they're saying to each other? But you don't really know. Well, there's nothing gets hidden when there's public messaging on Zwift. So I actually really like that function, that to kind of diss another team, you have to make sure everybody can see what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And then everyone watching can see what you're saying too. So it's all a little
Yeah.
bit out there. So that's, and I think maybe people forget that when they are right in the moment of TTing off the front. Um, It looks like we've just gone back to one of the groups, Rave, who we've talked about a bit, coming out this season. I think there's been their first time out here, so it's good to see this new team out pushing pretty hard. They had a good performance last week, and looks like they're doing fairly well today. Right in that more echelon format, looks like they've just dropped a rider to heel there from Rave. Has just dropped off the back. I saw her in the distance, so she's about 6 seconds back. Won't be catching back on. So these guys, unfortunately, will be taking just 5 of them to the line, and they are approaching the Aqueduct QOM, which I'd say there's sort of 2 tricky parts of this course. One is the Aqueduct QOM, that's where you can inadvertently drop riders, and the other is once you take the right at the balloon sprint and you're just on a rolling, really, really hard terrain in a team time trial. So if you're looking real life, Katie, what would you do when you're hitting rollers and twisty turny terrain and trying to race a team time trial? What kind of strategy would you have there?
I mean, it would be quite common for the strongest rider to take the pace through that. Because if you can assume that your strongest rider can ride at 200 watts for 10 minutes, you just get them to dial it back to 200 watts for 10 minutes rather than go to 400 watts for 2 minutes. Do you know what I mean? So it's a
Yeah.
pretty good tactic to make sure they look after everybody. So they're trying. This is interesting to watch because they're trying to get Rachel Heal back onto the bunch here, which is great. So Holslag is dropping back and seeing if she can get Heal and bring her back up so that they will still have 6. I love seeing that the team working in action. So when they're going through the difficult parts, it's a good idea to put your strongest rider on the front to be quite comfortable and do a much longer turn, because often that will prevent any inadvertent accelerations or what I call bombing through, like really increasing the power when a new rider comes through, which can do a lot of damage. So it can kind of be a steady ship to take that. So look at this. They're actually going to come back together with the 6 of them. So great riding here from the Rave ladies, because I think that they've looked after Rachel Heal very well there, and they're all back together. And I have to say, Anna, that Rachel Heal rolls off my tongue very easily, and I did just look her up on Zwift Power because I used to race with a girl named Rachel Heal. She was an Olympian, very proficient, very deep CV, and she was actually went on to be the first ever team director of a men's professional team. That did some big international racing. So I checked that it was not the same Rachel Heal, and it's not, but certainly the name has a very good reputation.
Yeah, I like that teamwork, and I feel like it does show the difference a little between the ACAT and the CCAT, and it's so good to just be able to see more of the CCAT riding, because I feel like you would never see that in ACAT. If someone's dropped 5 seconds off the back and you've still got 5 riders, they're like, sayonara, catch you at the end, like, see ya.
But I think the danger in that. Sorry, I totally agree with you there, Anna, because I think you're right. You wouldn't see that a lot in the A's, but I think that some of the teams, they need to be a little bit more considered in their strategy about what the longevity of the team, because the kind of incidents that we're talking about where one rider might get dropped and it is sayonara, sometimes that really wears at the fabric of the team. And there is a very fine line, I think, between competitiveness and getting that final time versus showing that it's really the focus is on the stronger members and the others don't matter. I do think it's a very fine line, and I think they need to weigh the overall outcomes against that strategy.
Yeah, you make a really good point, because that's true. She could have been a new rider on Zwift or new to the team, and then if they just drop her off, she could be like, oh, I don't really want to do this anymore. And suddenly you don't, have a good team that you can fill for each race. So, yeah, good point there. And just looking at the D category here, looks like we've got 4 riders again for the Cycling Mums Australia, which is awesome. Kate and I both been mums ourselves, can definitely empathise with probably the day that these guys have had, and they're finishing it off with jumping on a bike. So all power to them.
Yeah, often when I'm watching any of the Cycling Mums Australia riders, when I see anybody be gapped a tiny little bit, I don't write them off immediately because I assume a toddler's walked in demanding something. It's only when it turns into a bit of a longer affair that you think maybe they have bad legs. But you do need to consider that these are real people in their garages, often in their studies or their living rooms, trying to get this done as well. So big kudos to all of the CMA crew who are out there and doing a great job of it. Carla Joy, we saw her racing a fair bit on the weekend. She's one of the more, I would say, experienced CMA riders. So it's great to have her in this team because I think she can probably teach the other ladies quite a lot about the Zwift racing scene.
Katie, have you heard of the Zwift term a mum flat?
Oh, I haven't, but I'm going to assume, is that like when your 3-year-old pulls your power cord out? Because that's happened.
Yeah, or like they wake up from their nap and you just have to get off your bike and run upstairs, or you hear a
Mm.
crash and you're like, oh, I should probably go check that out. Yeah, it's quite funny. I heard about that when I
Yeah.
was first on Zwift. So if you see anyone, just write a little comment saying "mum flat," off they go. Got to go to the number one job.
Well, I laughed at that because you said, "Oh, I should probably go check that out." I feel like, in any other normal circumstance, you'd hear the loud noise and you'd bolt straight away. But you're on the trainer and you're like, "Oh, is it worth unclipping? I'm going to lose the wheel
Yeah.
here. I need to think about this one. Is it serious? Are they? Can we hear any noises?"
Yeah. And I always think silence is the worst. If there's a loud crash and then just silence, it's like, yeah, I definitely need to get off the bike. So
Yeah,
I do
yeah,
go
that's
and
when you
check on them.
unclip.
Exactly.
Yeah, before child
Oh,
services
no.
get sent round to our houses, rest assured, we do check on our children when we hear loud cracking noises. But no, look, isn't it just a testament to the power of community on Zwift that there's so many Cycling Mums Australia teams entered, that it really is
Mm,
the kind of community where they've kind of found their jam. They're like, yeah, we want to be bike riders, we want to be able to race, we want to be fit, but we also have to multitask. What's a way we can do that? Enter Zwift. It's a
yeah.
pretty good supportive way to get these women out on bikes or in
And
on
I think
bikes
as
as it
well,
may
it's the
be.
fact that exactly. I think the fact that they're on Discord as well, it means like, if you've spent the whole day talking to a 1-year-old, you can actually jump on your bike in the evening and chat to other adults in a cool kind of a race format. So yeah, I mean it's wins from all angles with this kind of a race, and love seeing these guys out here. It's just awesome. I did see though, unfortunately, they do have a team AHDRL, the Degenerates, I think, very hot on their heels. I can see here they're just climbing past. So I think these guys, orange headband. Shout out, always love that. These guys
Oh,
will
that's
be catching
triathlete,
it
isn't
pretty
it? That's
fast.
triathlete.
Oh yeah, I'm sure Kay Hood is a fanatical triathlete like I am, and she's rocking the dreads though, which looks a lot better than my hair. It's a bit plain, so yeah, full points to her liking that.
Well, you realise you can give your avatars dreads without actually having to do it IRL, right?
You know me though, my whole setup is exactly the same. Race wheels on, everything exactly how I look in game. If we're doing a team time trial, I put the disc wheel on the back, deep dish on the front. We just got to look the same.
Yeah, no, I respect that. What's been interesting about the Degenerates here, great name, is that we have seen them. A few gaps have opened up in there, but they keep coming back together. So they, as we discussed earlier, that we quite often see within this crew, they're doing a great job. Joanne Lees is one of the more experienced there. She will definitely be able to corral them, and they're blobbing along a little bit. They could possibly refine that a bit, but we saw quite a lot in season one that the first team time trial of the season was fairly blobby. But by the time we got to the end of the season, they'd streamlined a lot and learnt
Yeah.
all of the riders to work with their strengths and weaknesses, and they were in much better shape all around.
Yeah, and I think one thing I do want to note about this team, and I've tried to keep an eye on it with other teams, but definitely seems like this team is doing it. A lot of groups will choose different colors, whether it be different color socks, different color helmets, different color bikes to indicate the order that they should be going in. I'm just looking at these guys, and all of them are riding a different colored bike. And I just wonder if anyone's watching who knows this team, usually that is how you determine an order. You'll say, I'm after pink bike, I'm after green bike, I'm after yellow bike, and it just keeps it really simple.
Well, it's a lovely palette. I mean, it's pretty much kind of the paint palette that I use to choose the color of my children's room. I like it. I like the pastels, and I think it's a really good way to see which rider should be where and what's going on.
Yeah, it's often what I see with sock color, but those guys definitely think they were rocking that with the bike color. Looking at another AHDRL team here, the Diamonds, they've got a beautiful lineup here, just all in one straight line, drafting perfectly. They must be catching up to the riders ahead because they are nailing this team time trial.
This is beautifully executed form, isn't it? This is what we talk about blobbing versus this. This is such a lovely long straight line, and we don't need to worry too much about those little gaps opening up because you're still in the draft. And in fact, that often indicates that the riders are cracking along at a pretty decent pace, and everybody's pushing pretty hard to keep chasing that next wheel in front. If Amanda Robinson, if that's the same Amanda Robinson that I'm familiar with, she's also just really well drilled in how the Zwift world works. So, what I'm really enjoying, Anna, is that as the season progresses, we're starting to recognize names in the C's and the D's who we know are really good for the team, who we know are the more experienced ones, and kind of playing a leadership role out there. And I think it's really good for the development. We know AHDRL have so many teams out on course, but it's really good to see that they've apportioned pretty experienced riders to look after the crew.
I just see a comment there from Joy. Hi, girls. Do you think that's to us? I wonder if they're watching and they're just saying hi to us. Oh, a lot of highs. Go, ladies. Oh, I love this about the women's league. So supportive. Oh, and it's because they're coming through for a pass. So definitely no choice words there. Just a lot of support and awesome. Go you. It's just that makes me feel really warm at heart to see that.
It does. I mean, it's a lot kinder than get the hell out of the way or something like that, which, given the heart rates could be an option for some of them. But I think you're right. It does go to show that it's serious business and they're racing hard, but there's quite a lot of etiquette that goes into this. Now, this is not going as smoothly, I think, as they want. And look how polite that is. Sorry, ladies, you must drop. Can I say that if we were watching the blokes, I think that would more say like get out of the way. There's very polite that goes on there, but they do. So they do need to kind of get out of the way and let the AHDRL team through. And our queen bee there, who's kind of up there, and we see that comment from Carla Joy trying to. So there's a bit of in-game that we need to consider where there is pretty sticky draft. And so even if they want to get out of the way, they can't just stop pedaling because then they jettison backwards. So I think they've done a pretty good job there. Everybody's pretty polite. They're on their way. As the season gets on, that might get a bit smoother.
Yeah, and it's as we're talking about the politeness here, we'll just take a total switch and go have a look at the men's A division and see what's happening there. Any feistiness, I know usually DPAC and ZWC have a few things to say, but we're dropping in with PNX, 4 riders, unfortunately. So they're at their minimum group. They can't drop anybody now for the rest of the race. So a little bit disappointing to only start with the 4. They might have had a technical malfunction, but looking pretty... I'm not going to say good, like okay. Definitely need to get their formation sorted as we see one rider dropping back and looking like they might have just heard that and dropping back and trying to get back in that straight line.
Yeah, so they do start with more than 4. They need 4 to cross the line. So when they're down to 4 after 6.4 kilometres, it depends how many we're actually able to start, but it's possibly not the most advantageous position to be in for them. But in saying that, again, I'm liking the form. I'm liking the fact that they're obviously keeping the pace going. Those small gaps, again, don't worry me at all because it indicates that they're moving pretty well. And they are rolling pretty well as well. So it looks to me like they've gotten themselves quite organised amongst the 4, which with only 4 riders, they will need that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just watching Clues Proctor here drop back. Unfortunately, he's not really following the sink and sprint strategy very well. And we talked about sticky draft. That is really important when you're dropping off your lead. If you've just been leading, if you don't drop massively, almost freewheel and then sprint back on, you just drag everyone back with you and gaps start to form. The group gets confused. And that's what we saw there. Instead of dropping right to the back, he's stuck on to the second rider in line. The 4th rider then had to kind of get somewhat in the right place, and yeah, just got a little bit messy as we look at C. Stefanelli. Haven't heard of this team before. 5 riders here looking like a little motley crew.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure that the fashion police need to be dispatched on this one. I think they know their crimes against fashion. Sickly Stefanelli, it's an all-Italian team. I mean, they're following in the footsteps of Mario Cipollini. They're making themselves seen. It looks like Marco Pantani on the back there in the all-pink
Yeah.
kit there. But they're moving pretty quickly. That speed is quite high. The heart freight from Dieter Lisi, we can see the mid 160s. That's fairly comfortable. If it's still around the 160 mark, after about 15 kilometres, we'd probably say they need to push it a little bit harder. But pacing is a very big thing in a team's time trial. Only 8 kilometres into 24. This is the time where you break it down, don't you, Anna? You don't just get on the start line and say, okay, 24K to go now. You break it down into digestible pieces and just tick one off at a time.
Yeah, this course you really need to save yourself for the last part where it starts going up and down, because if you destroy yourself now, those up and downs feel like mountains rather than rollers. So these guys you've got to keep it a little bit in check, but you've also got to have a good sort of dose of momentum. And the teams that really know how to pace will know how to do this. Sometimes even having your strongest riders just take shorter turns, or turns not, at their higher power, means they can save a bit in the tank. And I like what you said before, Katie, about on the parts of the course where it's very twisty, turning up and down, just put your strongest rider on the front. I like that, and I think teams that can maybe save that rider a little bit now, and then use them later, potentially could make a lot of gains in that back half.
Well, we're looking at Gary Hayden now from the Aero Masters, and if somebody watching knows these crew, can somebody tell me if Luke McKenzie is legend triathlete Luke McKenzie of the same name? It's happened a couple of times where we've seen the name and it's turned out to not be the person we think. But if it is that Luke McKenzie, well, then they're onto a good thing having him along. There he is, number 5. So we can see they've got the numbers before their name. So that is their order. In saying that, if we look to the right of screen, it goes 1, 6, 3, 4. So I'm not sure that it ends up being as helpful as they intended it to be, but I think that's the thought behind it.
Yeah, so we decided to use that once in a race, and I can see why theoretically it works, but what happened to us was one of our riders had a tech issue off the start line, so suddenly the numbers were almost meaningless and more confusing. So perhaps that's what happened with that team. As we look at the pioneers here, looks like there are actually maybe 2 teams coming through here. So yeah, we have looks like the WTRL is in the yellow, and the pioneers are the sort of nondescript team. Oh, they are the same team actually. So the WTRL pioneers here. So sorry about that, but they were just getting a little bit confused within their own group. It looks like they've just dropped someone potentially off the back of their group. It's got Aero behind their name, but I don't see any Aero. So looks like he's just dropped from his team who are further up the road. So a lot happening in this men's A category as they're rounding out up to the 10-kilometre mark.
So the Pioneers look to be making some pretty solid ground. They're only about 10 seconds, 8 to 10 seconds behind the Aero Masters now. So we did see Craig Eastwood get a little bit caught up in there. I think a bit of confusion because their kits are different. Come on, guys. We need you to be in the same kit. I mean, that's, just a slight commentator's request there. But for the most part, they're actually looking pretty smooth. Even if they are in divergent kit choices here. And I think that their pace is remaining fairly high, given they are kicking up slightly. So probably the biggest test through this section is to maintain a fairly even power profile, whatever the speed may be, to make sure you don't break any legs. In that way, this part of the section is actually pretty dangerous, because if you hurt too much in this section, once they speed it up again toward the end, you'll just have nothing left.
Yeah, I do want the people who are watching to remember what these groups look like, and then wait when we see DPAC and Team ZWC out, because they will look very, very different. It will be straight line formation. I know ZWC, they all rock the aero helmets. It's full noise. And ZWC is actually one of the most competitive TTT teams, Prem and community. I know they were kind of podium and positioning based on their times last series. So it'd be good to see when they're out on course. Just the difference here between some of these, say, lower ranked A groups that, aren't quite getting the sort of rhythm right compared to those who are the masters.
And we do have two divisions this season in the APAC A's and B's, and that is because we've tried to keep it so that there's not more than 15 teams per division, just to make the racing fair and equal. And so we've actually had to go across a couple of divisions there. So we'll jump over and take a look at Division 2, and that is also the A grade teams, but we've just had to split them across different categories there. We have a few riders getting dropped. Piper there, he is getting absorbed by this crew, but let's jump over to the Division 2A, and Oral 7 we're looking at here, Partridge Madsen. They're down to 4 again, Anna. We keep seeing this. They're only 9 kilometres in to 24. This seems to be a bit of a constant today.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams who are jettisoning riders off early, or they just don't start with enough riders. So unfortunately, it makes the day really, really hard because you've just, you can't strategically drop anybody. So you can't sort of have someone do a lot of work up front and then just drop them once you hit the hills. Everyone's got to work the entire way through. And if you've got a rider who's just a little bit slower, you're only as fast as your weakest link in this situation.
Well, isn't that a funny term, strategically drop riders? When you're the one being strategically dropped, it seems rather brutal, but it is a real thing because sometimes the best way you can contribute to your team is by really focusing on the first half of a team's time trial, for example, doing some longer, harder turns and then kind of getting out of their way and letting them finish off with some style. But they do need to make sure that all 4 of them stay pretty close and look after each other. Otherwise, the back half of this, it'll be pretty messy. I mean, teams' time trials, it's fair to say they're not really delightful events, are they? They're pretty painful.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I don't really do them anymore on ADS. I did them last season.
You strategically dropped yourself, did you?
I strategically dropped myself. I said I had more value talking than puffing. So maybe it was just that I don't like the pain anymore and I've got PTSD from time trialing from my triathlon days. So yeah, it's not fun. I think there's a different element because you're in a team. You don't want to be the one letting anyone down. You want to make sure you're performing the best. So you just end up pushing way harder than you potentially would even on your own. So yeah, they're not pleasant experiences, that's for sure.
No, and I think that the mindset is very different going into teams' time trials versus individual time trials as well. It's intimidating being the weakest link, but in saying that, sometimes the strongest link can actually do more damage than good if they kind of don't use their powers wisely.
Yeah, I call that kind of the hero complex. So it's the one who just launches themselves off the front to be like, look how many watts I can hold, everyone, this is amazing. And then turns around and then, the rest of the team's 5 seconds back. So I haven't seen too many sort of hero performances in the racing thus far, but you could definitely see when it happens and you just sort of think, oh, come on, pull back those watts a little bit, let the team stay on your wheel.
So we're looking at Peter Z here. The team, how many have they got there? Have they got 4 as well? Oh no, 6. Okay, that's good. That kind of gives me a bit of relief, actually. I feel like we've seen far too many teams of 4 today than we would usually like. We've got Canyu Baroka there, who we are watching, and I love the aerial views. The game is just rendered so beautifully. I mean, looks like the helicopter just ran into the tree there, but it's the game is rendered beautifully. And Anna, I think it offers sometimes a little bit of distraction from the pain in your legs because you really can get very absorbed with everything going on screen.
You can, especially when you go through those areas with the sunflowers and then the beautiful lavender fields and then the balloons that are floating around the place. I'm sure these guys are really looking at all that scenery, Kate. You'll have to check in on them afterwards and see what they thought of it. But,
Yeah,
I
I'm sure they are too.
when we talked there before about strategically dropping a rider. I do just want to, look ahead to the future, just somewhat, in that the next two races after this are scratch races, but then after that, the next team time trial is on a course that I just think will be extremely hard to figure out how to ride it well as a team. It's at the Mighty Metropolitan course around New York, and you go up the New York KOM. That climb is horrifically hard, 8 to 10%, very tricky, even just to do it in a scratch race. So I'm very intrigued to see what those riders are going to look like when they tackle a course like that isn't quite as flat. And that's where they're going to have to think about strategically dropping people up climbs like that.
And I do think it's rather kind of the folks at WTRL. Thank you, crew, for kind of giving them an easy start with this team time trial, because it is good to learn the craft on the flatter course. We're watching Milburn from race 3R on the left of screen there. Look at that power, Anna. That's pretty solid. He's on the front to be putting out that kind of power, but that is not something that you can maintain for too long. Kovacic, he is now pushing through for them. They're clipping along pretty well. So they're about to go over the aqueduct here. Look, it's not a big climb, and this is Div 1 for the men's A. That we were just watching Div 2. This is back to Div 1, but still the A's. This isn't really a climb, is it, Anna? I mean, it's a KOM, but the profile isn't too nasty at all. I think all in all, we can still call this a flat course.
Yeah, you pretty much can, just from the rollers at the end, I'd say it's flat to rolling. That KOM, yeah, it's more of a sprint. It is a tricky part. So you see here the group, it's been led very well here though, by Kovacic, very well, that he took the lead there, pushed the power, and they've really lost not a lot of momentum. You see a few teams lose momentum there because either they've pushed too hard up the KOM, or they kind of cruise a bit too much on the downhill, and suddenly all momentum's lost. So they've done that very well. And they're actually talking on screen. So he's saying off, so he's had his turn and he's moving to the back. Not sure if maybe they don't have Discord working, or maybe they don't all speak the same language. But never ideal to be writing it up on screen. Just, takes that extra bit of effort with sweaty hands to try and make your phone work. But perhaps, like we have learned before, not all teams all speak the same language.
It was something we found out in season 1. It looks to me like Wes have just done a catch, but we will wait and see, because it may be that they are about to be overtaken here. So let's just see how this plays out. But for now, Wes aren't looking too bad. They're a little bit too blobbed at the back. That's a mountain bike? Okay, I'm going to put it out there, Anna. That's definitely not the fastest choice of bike, even with an aero helmet.
That is definitely not. Sometimes there are little quirks in the game where if you've been riding that bike at some point in your warm-up, you'll get put on it. I think it should be okay, but yeah, definitely don't pick the mountain bike for a team time trial. So it might just be what we're seeing. I am having a look at what our audience is seeing, and it looks like he has picked a nice disc wheel fast setup. So that's good to see that there isn't a mountain bike out there on course. So good news for the World Elite Zwifters, who actually have a lot of fans out there. I know Ryan Devlin has been messaging, just saying that they want to try and win today, but DPAC are pretty dominant.
Well, the team that I can't wait to see out on course is Beast Mode. Now, we saw them for the first time last week, and they are, of course, led by a world champion team director, a German team they are. So the Beast Mode crew, I just get a feeling that they will be pretty solid when it comes to team time trialing, not only because they all have excellent power numbers. And actually, if you jump into Zwift Power, it's a great way to follow along the racing to jump into Zwift Power. Beast Motor, all red. So they're all pushing over that 5 watts per kilo. So, look, I think that they might be someone that DPAC will definitely have to look out for as well. They're kind of new players. That's something that's great about the first couple of weeks of the community leagues is you have some new teams come along and all of the riders are learning what the teams are made of. And so the first couple of weeks often look a little bit different than the last couple.
Yeah, I think so. And I am definitely noticing, I'd say a theme for tonight is new teams out there because they haven't quite got this sort of technique nailed. But I think by the time we see the next one, although the next one, like I said, is on a really, really tricky course. So I think maybe they're not really going to nail it until the last team time trial. What are your thoughts? How do you ride a team time trial when you're hitting really, really big climbs?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about consistency. And what I'm always saying to my community riders on bunch rides is whether you're on the flat, when we hit the climb, you feel like you're going slower, but you're actually putting out more power. So you actually need to watch your power quite carefully and try and keep an equal power profile. It takes a bit of time to learn that skill and to even understand how that feels because putting out 300 watts on the flat versus on a climb feels quite different on the legs. And often your heart rate in particular will feel quite different and your cadence will as well. So in many ways, I think it's a exercise in self-control. And that's where heading out for some training rides and some training runs can go a long way because everybody, instead of even focusing on the screen and on the other riders, if you just focus on your power, see what happens, and kind of break it down into one element at a time, a lot of these teams will actually be using the racing to learn the craft of racing, and that's totally fine as well. We know that they're all multitaskers. We know that there's not a lot of available time to necessarily head out and do all of these training runs as well. And that's why I really love watching the team's time trials at the back end of these seasons because I think that that's when it kind of comes all together for them.
Yeah, I can see ZWC is just catching up to Z's Sun here, so we might even see them at some point just rounding that corner. These guys are now going past that lavender field, coming into, I believe, nearing the balloon sprint, and this is a very, very hard, brutal part of the course, and you've got what, like 5-6K to go, but it's not easy. And we're just seeing ZWC here, and this is a team I mentioned earlier who have really got this nailed very, very well. So they've got a lot of them are riding the aero helmets. They've got the very quick bike setups. You can just see from that aerial shot, perfect single line formation. If you look at the numbers on the right hand side, this is where a team's doing really well. So you can see a lead rider there. When he drops off, you'll see he'll drop off to very, very low watts and then put in a big sort of sprint to catch back on. Those numbers might even go orange. And that's where they've really dialed in how to do this race properly.
Well, and I want them to dial it in a little bit further because Team ZWC is the kind of team we can see not only step up to Premier League, but actually be very competitive in there. And the Japanese team were very impressive last season. And again, that looks like they've turned up very serious and ready to race this season. But what I want to see, Anna, is I don't want to see them dipping into that orange. What I want them to do is drop down to pretty low watts and get a little bit of rest on their legs, but ease it up a little bit more to make sure that they get on without having to have that differential. Because I cringe when I see going from very little watts to going to orange because some riders will be able to do that 100 times within a race and it not damage them. But for most riders, that will really hurt their legs. So we're seeing Evo on the overtake here. This is a big deal. We were just talking up ZWC because they are a big force in this community league. But Evo, they are having a ride of their lifetime here. They are not just overtaking, but really easily coming up with 6 kilometres left to go.
Amazing. And they've got a fan here, Russell Cripps, who's saying, come on, Evo, and agree. These guys are doing great. This is, I've seen 45, 46K now. They're up to the rolling part, so it's very hard. And they've got beast mode on their tail. So beast mode, 12 seconds behind Evo and catching. Evo about to make the pass on ZWC. You can just see that coming up now. And this is going to be interesting to see how they do this. They should all start pushing up their power, go through ZWC with momentum. ZWC is not going to be happy at this situation. A dominant team who is now getting passed on the road, that is never, ever good for morale.
Well, I think it can be quite rattling too. But look at this, because we're looking at Z Sun. Behind them, we're seeing ZWC making the catch on there. We're seeing Evo, and we know that Beast Mode aren't too far behind that again. So this just kind of goes to show how hard they're racing. Beast Mode, I said, Anna, that I was really looking out for these guys. They look very, very good out on course. I would note that they've dialed their kit down. They're looking great in resplendent in their orange tonight. I think they were taking your fashion advice, perhaps.
Yeah, they have been grilling me a little bit on Twitter, as they have to you as well, Katie, about their choice of orange. It's not my favorite color, but I'm not saying they don't look good in it. I'm just saying it's not my personal favorite color, but they are looking good right now. And I did just see they've got two professional cyclists in their team. Hat's there, riding just off the front now, and also Heidemann, who performed very well in the last scratch race. So these guys, they're coming with their A game for sure. And I think this is a clear indication they're wanting to push up to the Prem division.
Well, their 20-minute powers are, really world level. I mean, I just looking at this crew, I think it's the kind of team that can step up to Prem League and make a really big impact. They do have some real expertise in that race car. They won the World Championships. Of course, with Jason Osborne, I think that they are a crew that is definitely to be a little bit feared. They need to make sure that they don't let their watts go ahead of their strategy and make sure that they do stay in good form, because, again, this is a bit of a learning experience. I think what they've shown us so far today is that they've got very good legs, but we need to make sure that they're dialing their strategy as well. Deepak, we're watching
Oh,
Firminger here. We know Deepak's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Can they match
unreal. Look at that.
Beast Mode tonight?
Oh, yeah. I think these guys are pulling in massive time on beast mode ahead. Already, I've seen that drop from around 26 to 24 seconds. And these guys are looking strong. Deepak Lindsay out in front, one of my favorites actually. He's had a great race series, both in Series 1 and the scratch race last week, and leading out for his team here. Just got to be a little bit careful he doesn't explode the team behind him. But these guys have really nailed that formation. And like I said, one of the teams to watch. They're just poetry in motion.
Well, we're allowed to be a bit parochial here, and Sam Lindsay, he's a Kiwi, so it's okay for you to sing the national anthem whenever he gets on the front. But he has proven to be one of the stronger riders. Last season, he was really impressive. Particularly, I remember his performance in New York. That was really standout, and that's when he put his hand up and sort of said, I'm here. I'm not here to play. I'm here to race. And I think he's gone from strength to strength from there. But you're right, he does have a big advantage. Putting out 7 watts per kg there, he needs to make sure that he keeps everybody with him and takes them all for the ride. But for the most part, they are closing in only 25 seconds behind Beast Mode now. We were singing the praises of Beast Mode, how smooth they were, and definitely how strong they are on paper. But I think between Deepak and Beast Mode, this series is going to get very interesting.
Yeah, I think this is, from what I'm seeing already, it's the DPAC Beast Mode ZWC Evo show in this team time trial. They look so good out on the bikes, and they all seem pretty close. It'd be good when we see the final standings at the end, just how close they've been, because you can only kind of go by a feel. I do like what Deepak is doing here, having Lindsay lead the front during this hard section of the course. You can see in the gradients in the top right, it's just like -3, -2, +2, +3, +4. It's just always moving up and down and turning all the corners. You can see it's so easy just to drop riders. They've got a little bit of a gap there behind that third rider. So just so hard, technically hard to stay together in this part of the course.
So the women have finished now. We'll get the results a little bit later for that. But the fastest time there was 37 minutes and 46 seconds. That's moving pretty quickly for 24K. So some great racing happening there from the women. We knew it was going to be a fast course, and it's very much playing out this way. Beast mode, they're looking pretty smooth. It's a bit tough through this section, isn't it? We talked about this earlier, these twists and bends, plus they've got two teams that they're about to overtake. It will be really critical that they overtake very cleanly here, and there's a lot of etiquette that's going to go into this.
Yeah, I was just looking at the time. I just noticed that beast mode is all from Germany. So I was just having a look at the time in Germany. 10:30 in the morning. So sort of gentleman's hours for beast mode. Just thinking they've managed to get up, probably have a leisurely breakfast, put in a bit of warm up, and come out here and hit this hard. So it's always kind of interesting sometimes to see the time zones. I know some race at about 2 in the morning, but yeah, no, 10:30 is quite leisurely. Good way to start the day.
Yeah, it's kind of pro hours. And they've certainly turned up with their pro team. Now, this is where it gets interesting. They need to really just hit the accelerator here to make sure they get past ZWC quite clean. We do need to watch right of screen because we might see some messages popping up saying, please get out of the way. Let's see if they're as polite as the ladies were. A bit of an indicator as well is the map top right of screen with all of the red dots. And we can see that there's a lot of riders being dropped on their own there. And a lot of teams. So this isn't too bad. We've got 4 that have made a fairly clean move through the first section, but this is starting to get a little bit messy. Thank you very much to Beast Mode for all being in that same kit because it makes them easy, and also Evo for wearing that lovely magenta kit because it helps us pick out who is who. There's now 3 teams here, ZWC, Evo, and Beast Mode, that are all getting caught up together. So this is a little bit messy, but they're doing as good a job as I think they can.
And they're just about to cross the finish line. So I think we probably haven't seen too much chat because they're like, oh, you know, we're 200 meters from the end. So we'll just see beast mode pretty much cross the finish line about now. Just coming through some dropped, straggled riders. But that was good work from beast mode. That looks like they finished with 5 riders and finished very strong. So that's going to be interesting to see beast mode versus Deepak as to who is a faster team out there. I think those were the 2 that are definitely top of this ACAT.
So a good job from them. It's been, again, I think it's going to be a cracking season. If it's so competitive in a team's time trial, let's wait and see what happens. Now let's take a look here at the BCAT Div 2. Again, like Div A, they are separated across 2 divisions because of the sheer number of teams, which is pretty cool. 1,475 teams entered across all the divisions.
Oof.
And all the different geographies, Anna. So it's been a pretty incredible turnout for season 2.
Yeah, that's unreal. Just amazing. I just love awesome to see so many people taking to this format of racing, the team time trialing, and then the, you know, what I would say are pretty hard scratch races. So, you know, it's people love racing, getting out there, competing against each other, and having the social side of a team. So it's obviously a format that works, and great to see so many people out there. As we see an AHDR team here coming through, just 4 riders. They're just coming through this really tough section of the course, and then they take a hard right. And I would say almost when you hit that hard right, that's where we saw beast mode earlier. You just go all in. It's you just go all into the line. You've got about 200 to 300 meters from there. Just get on wheels, get your sprinters at the front, and gain any precious seconds that you can.
So and, we've just gone over to the Zwift HQ Ravens here. They are going to take the win in that category, so they've just crossed the line. Moncada from WMZ1. We've seen a lot of teams with 4. We're seeing a bit of a break up here of 5, and again the overtake. Even overtaking 5 riders is difficult. So we're looking at left of screen, we're looking at Div 1, and right of screen, we're looking at Div 2 in the Bs here. So they are both B categories, but spread across the different divisions there. So both of them approaching the finish line. They're pretty fast times, all in all. Around the mid-30s is pretty cracking for 24 kilometres.
Yeah, that's doing very well. I mean, and that's probably holding on average about 43.5 to 44k an hour to be hitting that 33 mark. So they've been riding very fast through this course. It'd be good. Maybe I'll do it on a bit of a deep dive analysis, but what is the best way to sort of split this kind of a ride? You know, do you want to have heaps of momentum in the flat parts and then just hold on for dear life in those rolling parts? That's a great sprint here. Sorry, from Hua here. Amazing. Lost the rest of his team, but good solo sprint. Maybe that's our hero performance of the day.
Oh, you're brutal sometimes, Anna, I tell you. But you do make a very good point. Look at the top right of screen at all those squiggles. It kind of, I don't know if you had Mr. Squiggle in New Zealand, but if not, it's a puppet with a pencil for a nose. And Mr. Squiggle used to draw those kinds of pictures when he was trying to draw straight lines. It's the kind of road that makes you feel a little bit nauseous, both riding it and watching it. And sometimes I think you can get a bit lost in the curves rather than just focusing on riding straight. We're looking at right here from the AHDR choppers. He's had a little bit of an acceleration, maybe a bit of a hero move there, Anna, but his team coming up quite nicely together toward the finish.
Yeah, that's a good finish for AHDR choppers. 5 riders coming in there. Not sure if they started with 6, but that's nice and strong. They're looking good coming into the end. And yeah, like you're saying about those squiggly lines and that part of the course, I am actually liking the camera angles we've got going on today in this race, because I remember last time I did start to feel a little bit seasick following some of these riders around that part, but I haven't had that tonight. So all good on that front.
Yeah, no, the production crew have done a very good job tonight. We've had some great pictures and different angles to get a very good shot of everything going on, particularly that overhead shot when Beast Mode was getting caught up in those other teams. And it will be interesting to hear their thoughts on whether they think that affected them for the good or for the bad. We're watching WMZ3 with Gabrielle here. They're coming in, all 6 of them together, good camaraderie there. In the men's CCAT. Brewer here leading SABR. What do we think SABR stands for? Something big ring, Anna?
Yeah, maybe. Gosh, I have no idea. I've actually never seen this team before, so might have to do a little bit of searching while we're watching this. But yeah, I mean, it took us a very long time to figure out that TBR was the big ring. So this is probably going to take us the next 6 weeks to figure that one out.
Yeah, that is true. It did take us probably a disproportionate amount of time to figure out what that acronym stood for. I don't know if that kind of indicates that maybe we don't spend enough time in TBR. That may definitely be the case. They've got 5 riders here, so they're not doing too badly. Their speed, they're hanging on to a fairly consistent speed coming to the finish, which suggests to me that they've apportioned their effort pretty well.
I figured out what it is. Sportive
and
a
laugh that comes. Right, so nothing to do with big rings. Okay.
No, sportive and beer rouleurs. So there we go. And I think if we can get a little aerial shot of their kit, I have seen this kit out a lot when I've been riding around on Zwift, and it's got a little, there we go, bike and beer. I remember because I've seen that group, and every time I see them, I feel like a cold beer. So there we go. Oh, and they've got a little beer bottle in the right-hand pocket, similar-ish to the dirt jersey that has a baby bottle. These guys have got a beer bottle. Loving it. Love this kit.
Oh, look, any team that manages to get beer in their team name and team kit I think they should just win a separate prize. So good on them. We at least know that they've got a good sense of humour, even if they take their cycling serious. And look at this, they're making a bit of an late overtake at the finish here. I'm not sure we need to worry too much about the etiquette of overtaking as they come to the finish line here, but a good way for the beer boys to finish off. And yes, I know that's not their technical name, but I think that's what I'll call them from now on.
Nice, I like it. I think it's good. If you're going to have beer on your top and then you've got beer in your pocket, then Beer Boys is great.
And here we have the big ring rider, McBride, making his way in. It's sometimes a bit difficult, Anna, when you see the riders come in one by one. You know that they've had a bit of a tough day. But the big ring here, they've got, I think it's 46 tooth, this crew. They do have a few different crew out there. Yes, there they are, 46T. And great kit. I really like their kit. It's not too dissimilar to the Smile On kit that the women ride as well. In fact, it might be the
I like
same one
it.
that's new in game. This one. So it is a very good kit. Now, the other thing that we have in this season that's different to last season is we do have a couple of mixed teams. So we saw that in week one. We saw a couple of ladies mixing it up with the fellas, which was great. And as the series plays out, we'll get to see a few more of those as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. And that's a completely different tactical arrangement where you've got women and men in the same team time trial group. So if anyone has actually done a little bit of research into that, I'd love to know what kind of strategy you would be running when you've got a mixed gender team time trial group. But looking at the Div 1D category here at the TZP Deltas, group of 4 who are strong, but looks like they've got Cryogen right there, only 5 seconds back. So Cryogen might just end up catching them on the line. Cryogen very dominant across all of the team time trials, across all categories, both men's and women's. I think just because so many of them enter the WTRL Thursday, Friday team time trials, that they've just had so much practice. You can see them coming through here and passing with force. This TZP group, Deltas ahead of them.
We've seen quite a lot of overtakes today, and I think it does take a bit of settling in these team time trials. A bit different to season one, we'll have 5 points races and 3 teams time trials. Anna, from your perspective and for your team, Sarah, the pros closet, is that a good thing that you've got more points racing and less teams time trials, or what's your opinion on that one?
I think it's a better decision. I think the issue with the team time trial is sometimes there's just a team that is supremely dominant or is really good at getting 6 riders to the start line for every team time trial, and that's just not possible for all teams. We look at the Cycling Mums Australia. I mean, it must be hard just even to get mums on Zwift at a certain time. There's so many factors that can go on that can mean you can't get on there. And so I think it kind of just is slightly biased, those bigger teams that could always field a group of 6. And I think now, just with the scratch races, the points going a lot deeper, all the improvements have been fantastic. And, also having, I know on our team where you've got fastest segment time, not just fastest or first across line, means in those scratch races, you can start to use some riders who otherwise would have felt a bit useless. Maybe they're sitting at the back and felt like they weren't contributing. You can actually put them to good use and have them get some important points for the team.
Yeah, the use of segments rather than first over line is certainly a little bit of a game changer, I think, particularly in the community leagues, because in some of the categories we have a bit of a divergent ability pool as some kind of learn the craft of Zwift racing and develop. We're watching Hussey here from Cryogen, 186 heart rate. So he's clipping along quite well and certainly putting the effort in. And as we cross to the other riders, it seems a bit of a consistent theme here that their heart rates are fairly high. There is a bit of a gap between all of them. They're not in that draft effect. They'd be having a small element of the draft effect, but not that full 25% that you want to get. So it is much better to jump back on that wheel of Hussey. And if all 4 of them can get back together, they don't have long to go here, but it will be nice to finish as a team.
Yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate when they get those big gaps in between them. They're not sort of working super cohesive as a team, but they've seemed to have come together nicely now. They'll take this right-hand turn, and then it'll be sort of just all guns blazing to the line. So nice to see Cryogen, so you can already see that first rider getting out of the saddle. That's a huge sprint effort they're putting in. So awesome to see they've still got something in the tank left to finish really strong in this team time trial.
Oh, it's nice to finish it off. I think across all of the divisions, we've seen some pretty committed racing. That's the word I would use, because regardless of experience or sheer ability, according to their power numbers, we've seen a real commitment to trying to get a good form for the team and trying to commit pretty well. Delightfully, Anna, we haven't seen a lot of those hero moments. So we have seen pretty good team cohesiveness. And I actually think that there's a couple of teams we've seen that have finished with 6 riders. And you know what? Maybe it's better for them to only finish with 4. Maybe that would yield them a faster result. But what I really like is that they've focused on week 1 of the team's time trial of just working together as a team. And I think that establishes quite a lot of trust within the group.
Yeah, I just like looking at Nathan Guerra there sitting alone on the start line. So maybe just didn't want to pull into the team time trial melee and just wants to chill there and watch from afar. But if Nathan's listening, you've got to get on the bike and do the training if you want to win those races. But just watching Vickery here in Cryogen, looks like just rounding out this one alone. So we saw their teammate finishing. So this looks to be a female rider because of the ponytail I can just see there and the general Zwift body shape. So that was maybe that's the strategy with that sort of mixed group is drop the lower power riders in that tricky section of the course and finish with those 4 strong sprints that we saw earlier.
Yeah, well, all in all, I think they've done a pretty good job. And I feel like we should have a slogan for Nathan sitting on the start line there, like you need the pain to get the gain or something like that. I mean, it rhymes. Yeah. It sounds catchy to me.
Exactly. I mean, it's all great to sit there looking cool on your bike, but yeah, you can't just sit there and look great on your bike, but actually not put in the power and the work. So yeah, we'll probably see some more training out there from Nathan. So everyone watches Twitch channel. I'm sure he's going to lay down the watts and show us what's up.
yeah, exactly. You're giving your little YouTube show a bit of a plug there, Anna. I've noticed you've started a WhatsApp with a few little strategic hints, so it'll be great, I think, for team directors to jump on there, because you just won't tell us, Cyrus the Pros Closet, secret strategy, but you do give away some knowledge bombs there on your YouTube channel. Now let's go and take a look at the women's results and see how they fared out on course. So let's take a look at the A div here. We had 2 teams. Aero took a bit of an advantage, 34 seconds ahead of Zed's Sun, but in a pretty cracking time of 35.47, so a good ride from those women there.
The B division looks like TBR Smile On took that out. I thought they looked really good with the AHDRL caffeines on their tail, averaging 3.2 watts a kg.
Let's take a look at the Div C. We've got We Ate the Cake taking the win there ahead of Spin Mafia. The Comets in 3rd, the Cruisettes in 4th, Cycling Mums Australia Queen Bees in 5th, Rave C took 6th, and Herd of Wilbies took 7th.
And rounding out the D division, AHDRL Diamonds took that out with the Cycling Mums Australia Velo Girls in 2nd.
All right, let's take a look at the men's results. So we've got Div 1 and Div 2 here. To remember, oh wow, how about this, Anna? DPAC
Elite taking
the win, but not by a lot. Beast Mode crew 0.28 seconds behind. Game on.
Unreal.
This is going to be exciting. The Evo Savages, they came in 3rd. Team ZWC Blast in 4th. Already that top 3, that is pretty tight and pretty competitive. We've got Team Cryogen Super Bagneres, one of the most beautiful climbs in France. They are in 5th. Wes, number 2 in 6th. Sickly Stefanelli, the Italian squad, there in 7th. The WMZ All-Stars came in 8th, Phoenix Cycling Collective, they're in 9th, and the Big Ring 54 Tooth sitting in 10th.
And for the B category, we have the Evo Barbarians in first, Dirty Sprockets in second, AHDR Blowflies in third, Cryogen Etnas in fourth, WMZ Bumble in fifth, the Zwift Headquarters Ravens we saw finish in sixth, Vision APAC in seventh, TV Gungner in eighth, Z Sundries in ninth, and TBR 49 Tooth in 10th.
All right, let's take a look at the Div 1 CCAT. We've got the WMZ Chasers taking the win there, 36 minutes and 9 seconds. AHDR Chances in second, only 8 seconds back. That's pretty tight there. Back a minute. They're the beer boys, the Sportive and Beer Rollers coming in third. Cryogen LT'd in fourth. AHDR Choppers coming in fifth. TBR 46 Tooth coming in sixth. In seventh, we've got the Chargers. In eighth, the Evo Flux. And in ninth, we've got the Valhalla Levantine. Sounds like flour to me. I'll have to figure out what that means. But we haven't got the D's coming through yet, Anna.
Okay, so we've got the AHDR Diesels in first, the WMZ Dodgers in second, Cryogen Mount Hotham in third, and Deltas in fourth.
So we've got a good depth of field across the board. Now look at this. This is the Div 2As. We've got the Oral 7 taking the win there, 32 minutes and 15 seconds. So that's about a minute back on where DPAC was. So still pretty competitive. Team ZWC, the Allies, in second. AHD all for cake. There's a bit of a cake theme with the Hump Day Riders. They came in third, and the Peter Z Vivadors in fourth.
Looking at Division B, the TBR 50 Tooth in first, WMZ Bees in second, Evo Mad Max 2021 in third, Beta in fourth, TT1 Bruisers in fifth, Dirty Sprockets Trois in sixth, AAVF in seventh, AHDR Ballers in eighth, AHDR Beers in ninth, and Wang Farang CC in 10th.
Gotta say, some of these team names, Anna, are a bit of a cracker. Let's see, there's no other results that are coming through yet. So let's take a look at the team league standings. For the women's APAC, we've got Zed Sun sitting on top ahead of Aero with the BRT Hellfire Kittens sitting in third. They need to up their game a bit if they want to move up there, Anna.
And in the B category, TBR Smile-On, we might actually just hold off on those results. It looks like they might not quite yet be finalised. So always head over to the WTRL website for any results. They'll be up live in the next couple of days, so you can go check them out and see who's leading the APACs.
So that's WTRL.racing, and you can sign in there and see all of the results. And it's quite interesting, I find, to compare the different times, not only across the different divisions, but also Prem League versus what we're seeing here, because DPAC and Beast Mode, they are both teams that would be very competitive already in Premier League. And I feel like we've kind of got a good draw here, Anna, being able to commentate on these crew.
Yeah, I think both of those are going to be definitely going for those Prem spots. DPAC just missed out last season to ZWC, and so I think they're just gunning for that win now, and they don't have Relentless in the way. So this time they got Beast Mode.
Well, and, strategically, I think they all went out there today just trying to get the best result that they possibly could in terms of laying down a good time, and they certainly did that. Well, a very big thank you to everybody for joining us, and anybody engaging on social media, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We love it. Any acronyms we miss, we need your help so it doesn't take us to the end of season 2 to figure out what it all means. Anna, look, overall, I think tonight has been one of the more impressive teams time trials that we've seen, and I think season 2 has really upped the ante from season 1.
Oh, for sure. Bring on the next race. I'm super pumped. It's going to be exciting.
Well, good luck racing yourself out there tomorrow, and or de-essing if that's what you're choosing to do. strategically dropped, I think you called it. And we'll see everybody next week for more in the points racing for the APAC League. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.